Hello, everyone, and happy Thursday. We are back for another Voices of Resilience, and our guest today is Cameron. I'll introduce her in just a second. Before we do, I just want to say thank you for joining us today, whether you are live or you're watching this later. We're happy that you're here and you're joining in on the conversation. So if you're here with us live, post something in the comments, ask questions as we go. We want to engage with you because I say this every week. You probably get sick of hearing from me, and to be fair, I don't blame you. So make sure you post in the comments if you have questions that you'd like to ask Cam. And then also, I just want to let you know about Lost and Found, because this is put on by the Lost and Found Association. My name is Nathan Hofer, and I'm the Director of Campus Operations for Lost and Found. And Lost and Found is an organization that focuses in on developing resilience in young adults. From ages 14 to 35, we focus in on building resilience and helping be part of the solution for mental health. We focus on preventative health measures and providing tools, skills, and communities that really focus in on ways that we can teach people to be more resilient, because we can all learn to be more resilient. Let's be honest. I mean, the world we're living in right now has definitely proven to us that we need resiliency more than ever. So we're excited to be able to do these things. These Voices of Resilience conversations are awesome. They're powerful because our stories matter, and we're getting to talk with all these wonderful people about their stories and hearing them be open and honest and vulnerable about things. And today we have Cameryn, not Christian, Friesz, because that's how I've grown up knowing you, Cam. But Cam here, she is grew up in a small town, South Dakota, grew up in a town, Parker, that I grew up in Freeman, and we used to I never had to race Cam in track, thank goodness. Crushed me. But we also had the opportunity to run together at South Dakota State. And Cam comes to us just to share a lot of experiences. She is a successful collegiate athlete. She is a person of color from a small town. And she is just one who's had to, be resilient through a lot of things, because you don't become a national, I don't know if you were definitely at the national level for track, but you have multiple records at South Dakota State for track and field. And that is super awesome. I have 0 records. I don't even have the speed to have half a record. So Cam, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself? I kind of threw out a bunch of random nonsense, but.
Well, yeah, I mean, you stole a lot of it. No. No, Nate and I go way back. Yeah, no, we ran together when we were in college. But before that, yep, I'm from Parker and spent most of my life in South Dakota, born and raised here. My family spent a few years in St. Paul, Minnesota, but spent most of my life growing up in small town South Dakota. Come from a family that is biracial, and I'm in a biracial marriage now. And oddly, my kids look biracial, one little brown, one little white. But yeah, so that's a little bit about me personally. So as I said, I'm married. I have an 8-year-old daughter and a 4-year-old daughter, and we live in Sioux Falls now. I work in risk management at US Bank. I manage a team of testing analysts that conduct testing over the anti-money laundering and anti-terrorist financing programs for the international jurisdictions. So stay busy with that.
Well, that's not intense at all. That's not.
It's not stressful at all.
Not a big anti-terrorism, money laundering. It's fine.
Yeah.
Ooh, I did not realize that's what you were doing there. You did not share that with me.
Yeah.
This a little bit. Well, like I said, as we're looking ahead, I was really lucky to have you join us, Cam, because, one, like I said, I think you have a lot of experiences, but we're also in the midst of, we don't really know what's going to happen with our college campuses that we serve, but we know that this is about the time when a lot of those student athletes are coming back. I know that some of them are filtering in. We've got athletes that are coming back to their universities, and we don't know what that looks like for the coming school year. But I thought it'd be so great to have you on as someone who, just like I said, I know a little bit about your story. I found out a lot more the other day when we were chatting, and I just thought you would be such an awesome person to have on our, I say show, it's not really a show, but
live with Nate.
Ooh, no one will watch. No one wants to be here for that. It's Voices of Resilience, everyone, not live with me. But I just was thinking about that as we talk about a population that students in general, like so they go through so many transitions and they go through so many different varieties of life as they head on to that next chapter. And for athletes, I think there's sometimes even an added you're put into another box almost. So I know one thing we talked about was how you felt like that was something that you had to deal with when you were at SDSU in particular. So how did you deal with, like, you were in a lot of boxes that didn't seem to match up, I think is how you describe it.
That's a really nice way to say it. Yeah. No, so those that know me from my hometown and growing up and stuff, I was a singer and I was a musician and a performer way before I was an athlete. All of my siblings really enjoyed sports, but I was the kid that would intentionally forget my boots during the winter because I didn't want to go outside for recess and I didn't want to play outside. I know, true story. And then my mom was like, why aren't you reading or doing your assignments anymore? I was like, well, I learned you don't have to go outside if you don't do your assignments. So I would stay inside. I came up with some creative ideas, but so I was a performer before I was an athlete. But then, so I actually went to SDSU because I wanted to go into music merchandising, like music business. And it was one of the only universities locally that had a degree toward that field that I was looking for. So I went there before school. I auditioned for a music scholarship because I wasn't going to have funds to go to school without having some scholarships and grants and that kind of stuff. So I went there and auditioned and ended up getting a music scholarship. And while I was on campus, my mom said, we should really just go to the athletic department and talk to the track coach. And I was like, you can't just go talk to the track coach, Mom. You can't just go do that. And she's like, well, let's just go see if he's there,
So you busted down the door to Marcus's office.
So we went to Marcus's office. And I was like, hi, I'm Cameron. I'm here for music auditions, but I'm interested in the track team. And he had no idea who I was. I had several individual and team state titles and championships by that point. I had been, running in state meets since I was in 7th grade, had no idea who I was. And so it was humbling, which was fine. Okay. He's not going to give me any money. He has no idea who I am, but so then he said, write down some of the things that you've done or some of the times that you've had, with the events that you've ran. So I started writing them down. And then all of a sudden he was like, wait, what? Where are you from? And he was like, okay, we need to talk to the head coach, and pulled in the head coach. And then they gave me a small scholarship. Mm-hmm. So my music scholarship was much larger than my athletic scholarship, but people knew me for my athletic scholarship or for being in track. So it became quite a balancing act because then here I was, this music major and a music scholar, and having to go to rehearsals and extra practices and courses that weren't related to track and weren't for track. And track practice and music rehearsal really happen at the same time because there's not a lot of people crossing that line together. So it was an interesting freshman year. I did end up realizing, I really want to go into business. I'm more interested in management or risk management and econ. So I dropped the music major and then finished on with track. So it was kind of a balancing act to realize that. But I enjoyed school and learning, and track was really kind of that extra thing for me. It was the extra icing on top of the cake, but it really helped me to achieve the goal of going to school and getting my degree. And what I didn't realize, that track would have a much larger impact on my life than what I really would have realized or intended, just because it really helped me realize, the increased activity that I was involved in helped to reduce the anxiety and stress and pressures of school. And my family moved away across the country the day I graduated from high school. So I not only was going to school, but in my home state, but I didn't really have any family around me either. So it was there as my safety net to help me get through those times.
That's awesome. I wanted to say real quick, Cam, I remember you being very good at choir and stuff, going to competitions and stuff too. I remember, for those of you who aren't familiar, like, small town South Dakota, you get to know the people in the communities that are like the ones that you just like, you just know who certain people are. And I remember everyone, if I never had to, once again, I never ever had to compete against you in anything because, thank goodness. But I just remember everyone be like, oh no, in this heater. Oh no, I have to, she's doing a solo too. God.
Oh no. Oh
It's good. It was good though, because you were passionate and you put forth a lot of energy and were successful in those things. But we were talking about it the other, when we were talking the other day, I know that I always had like the worst luck of like ending up in certain people's heats in track and being like,
yeah. Well,
I guess I'll just see what the bottom of their spikes look like.
the color of their spikes. Yeah, exactly.
I did, when you were talking about this, you were in two things that they take a lot of time and a lot of energy. So how were you able to like maintain, especially that freshman year? Like, so I know you transitioned into a different major after that, but that first year, you're going through this whole transition of leaving home. Your home is left you, kind of.
Yeah.
And then you're doing two things that take a lot of time and energy. Because I mean, once again, I did choir for a hot second. One semester, I did a men's choir at SDSU, and I know how much time that was one semester, and it was not the same, as being a music major and all the other things that go into that. So how did you find, I don't want to just use the word resilience because it's like the word we're talking about, but how did you like maintain mentally tough and disciplined through all that? Because especially with, athletics and music, they ask a lot of you. They ask a lot of your time and your energy and your focus to grow and improve.
Right. Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, at the time, I think I just honestly was like, I got to do this. Like, honestly, I don't know that it was anything like amazing about it, but I really enjoyed music, and that was the part that was deep down in me. But I almost too felt like there was this pressure, like I had to stay in music. People knew me from music in my hometown. And I had always like, I would rather go to the Grammys than to the Olympics, and like, that's what I was. So I almost felt like I had this pressure, like I had to stay in music. But as I grew, I started to realize like, I love music and that's my personal thing, but that doesn't mean that I have to share it with everybody else too. Like that can just be my thing. And so I came to realize toward the end of my freshman year that I love music. I don't know if I want that to be my career. I still want it to be a part of my life and something that I'm doing, but I don't know if I want that as my career. It can still be an extracurricular activity that I'm doing. And so at times I almost felt like I was this imposter, like trying to fit the mold of something that I really wasn't, instead of just being what was me, which I was a musical athlete. It's abnormal, but I was, and I enjoyed both of those things, even though it was not my desire to run after high school at all. Like I fought it for a while, but I'm so glad that I did, with the people that I met and the things that I learned through the balancing act. Because I mean, resilience for me is really like finding that balance between peace, the balance and the peace that you have with it. And so I had always really been in a lot of activities, but then to juggle all of those was another growing opportunity. It was an opportunity for me to grow in a completely different way that was, focused on what mattered to me, not what mattered to other people at that time.
Yeah. And, you mentioned something that we had someone talk about just a couple weeks back. And so I want to bring it up because I don't want it to go by without us talking about it. You said you felt like an imposter, and, we talk about imposter syndrome, where and what that looks like. And a couple weeks ago, Sadie was on and she talked about that. So can you explain a little bit more about that for you as you were talking about that? Because you brought it up and then you just kind of like, it sounds like it's just so part of something that you just accepted about your story that you just you touched on, and you're like, all right, well, here we go, keep on going.
I just was, yeah.
Praise you.
Yeah, and not like in a bad way, like not like I was trying to be somebody that I wasn't, but I think there's this overwhelming feeling to fit in. And even if you're not trying to fit in, there's still that feeling like want people to like me, and I want to like the same, or I want, to have similarities with people. And the differences are the things that can keep us away instead of pulling us together. So as I was growing up, I started to realize I did things like I started straightening my hair, which my kids helped me to never have time to straighten my hair anymore these days. But
I was straightening my hair, but I understand that.
Right. But it's a simple thing, and it's not that I straightened my hair because I wanted to. It's because that's what I saw around me as the acceptable thing, that, what was put together, what was professional, when I got into my career. So even when I went to college, I had never really wore my hair naturally curly. It was very rare for me to do that, and people, when I first went on the team, said, we have this like first meeting where you meet everybody and you learn, you have to keep this grade level and you should probably sit in the front of the classroom. And I was a nerd, so I wanted to sit in the front of the classroom anyway, kind of thing. And as we started finishing up the meeting, I overheard some of the girls say, well, coach said he recruited a Black girl. I guess she didn't show up. And I was like, I think that's me. I don't know, but it might be. And they're like, oh yeah, I just see some nappy roots behind that straight hair, Okay. Yeah, I guess you do, but and it's funny because now the people who said that are some of my best friends today, and they were just joking and it was lighthearted. But it's the simple things like that where you try to fit into this mold of what's the accepted norm instead of just accepting, like, what if I just am different, and that's fine. And I like different things, and we talk about those different things and we learn from each other in those differences.
And I was laughing mostly because we had talked about this a little bit the other day, and when you told me that story, I was like, was it this person and this person? And you're like, yeah. And I was like, knew it.
You ladies are busted. Nate called you out.
And you're loved still. It was funny because I was like, was it? And you're like,
yeah, like, I know. They're some of my best friends now.
Oh, it's been more than a decade. Gross. I don't want to talk about it.
I know. When you were saying the age of the group that you service, I was like, oh man, yeah, I'm right at the top of that one.
I'm in one of the groups I get to be a part of is Sioux Falls Up and Coming, and then goes up to I think 35. I'm like, I'm almost on the out and going part of it.
You're like, almost over the ladder. Yep.
Well, Sioux Falls out and going. Here I am.
Yep. That is so funny. Had that opportunity.
Oh goodness. You kind of touched on it here just as you were talking about, you're accepting of your differences as you've gotten older. But I can attest to small town South Dakota. I don't remember Parker being very diverse. I definitely know Freeman was not. So I know we discussed this the other day, and it was lighthearted. But I think you mentioned that you heard later that you thought people were maybe thinking that it was like you were the Black girl from Parker, and I'm like, that is totally how people described who Cameryn Christian was. Like, who's Cameryn Christian? Like, oh, she's the Black girl from Parker, the runner. like that's her over there. You don't want to be in her heat; she'll crush you. Like that kind of stuff. So, how was that going from? I can't wrap my head around what that had to be like, knowing that even if you don't know what's happening. So, what was it like for you to be like your first kind of experiences with race in a place where you were different from the people around you? You did stand out.
Yeah, and the differences were very obvious, So, I guess at first I would say, I wouldn't share this. I've never really even shared this, and I haven't even talked about this with my closest girlfriends, which just recently started talking about race stuff with them, which if you're friends with me on Facebook, you've probably noticed that too.
Which is not part of the reason why I asked, but you popped up in my feed a whole lot more. I'm like, I do need to talk.
Sorry.
I love it. It's great.
Yeah, no, but I think it's an opportunity for growth, for us to see the opportunities that are there for us to learn. Because I loved growing up in Parker. My mom had grown up in Parker, and so that's why we originally moved back to Parker. But I was, one of like 6 Black kids in the town, and I had 3 siblings. So there was only one other, family basically growing up. And, I never really felt like that was a bad thing or that we were called out for stuff for that reason. But there's one situation, the very first situation that occurred. I moved there when I was in 3rd grade, and I was called the N-word for the very first time. And coming from a biracial family that lived in St. Paul and Sioux Falls before that, my dad was Black, my mom is white. They experienced a lot of racial situations, from people not serving them at the gas station, or my dad having to leave and my mom coming in to pay for things because people wouldn't let my dad pay for it, different things like that. And we would be there and see it. So then they would kind of explain, well, some people have a problem with this, but we never really, I don't know that we ever really talked about, like, how do we handle it? If you experience these situations, how should you handle it? So the first time I was called the N-word, it was actually, you with your horse hair are just an N-word. And I was in 3rd grade, and I remember being so shocked and not knowing what to do, not knowing how to respond, that I fired back with an F word, which was not a good idea. Not a good idea at all. And understandably, I got in very big trouble for firing back with that F word in inappropriate language, which I deserved, shouldn't be using that language, definitely not using that language at that age or in school. But it wasn't the word that was the most traumatizing for me. It was the reaction from the situation. I 100% deserved to get detention. It's the one and only time I ever got detention for doing something like that at any school I went to. But nothing happened to the individual who said it to me. And when my parents went in to say, this isn't right, why would this individual not be in trouble as well? There was a lot of confusion. Like, why would they be in trouble? Your daughter cursed, this person didn't. So at that moment, I didn't realize how it was impacting me or how it would impact me, but I shut down. And that's the moment when, if I was going to talk about race and when things weren't fair or things weren't right, I wasn't going to be talking about it there. And I wasn't going to be talking about it anymore. So it really became this overwhelming feeling of that imposter. Like, I cannot be who I am. I need to fit in, or I'm never going to make it. I'm not going to survive, and that's not how things were all the time. And that wasn't regular situations. It was definitely an abnormal situation, but the reaction showed that there wasn't a way to respond to those kind of incidents at that time. And nobody really knew how to respond to it.
Yeah, I think that had to be incredibly difficult. I would assume, you kind of already said it, so it's not a wild assumption. I'm just summarizing, but it's like that had to shape how you'd react to everything kind of moving forward. Because if you reacted in the way you did, that you said it might have been not the best way, but it maybe definitely wasn't unwarranted. But then that was the response. I can imagine that was just something that really just shuts you down from wanting to talk about it, wanting to, if someone ever did that again, you just, are you going to address it when last time you did, you got in trouble?
Right. So what I would do is I just ignore it, and I just went silent, and that did nothing. Then it just gave the impression that the behavior was fine, and certain terminology and certain words and certain phrases that people would use was normal because Cameron didn't correct me. So it must be normal, and I never wanted, anytime I would see other people speak up, it would be, it's not always about race. It's not always about black and white. Why are you saying that? Maybe that wasn't their intention. The intention doesn't really matter. It's the impact that the action results in that matters, And so I never wanted it to be a black and white thing and race thing, but sometimes it is. And so what are we going to do when it is what's important.
Oh, I love what you just said, by the way, Cam. If anyone who's watching this, I'm going to post it in the chat here too. Intention is, oh gosh, I lost it. Oh no. Intention.
Let's see if I remember what I even said.
Intention doesn't matter. What matters is the impact.
The intent does not matter. It's the impact of the action. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I love that. I'm going to put it in the chat right now because I want us to come back to that, be able to see it, because I think we have. I mean, I when we were talking the other day, I said I think often especially as we were talking about growing up in similar towns. Like, how big was your graduating class? Just out of curiosity,
was like around 40.
Yeah, we had a whopping 21. We were cruising.
Oh, we were bigger than you, but you had a lot of schools in your town too, didn't you?
We had the academy. They had a graduating class of 6 that year. I don't know why I remember.
Oh.
Gosh, that's
wow.
Why do I remember that? That's 2005. Gross.
That's pretty good. Pretty good. It's a good memory there.
Aged myself. I think it was because it was like we were like the 2 smallest classes in the history of Freeman.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
I just think though, like how often we do things, and I'm sure I did things that were meant to be well intentioned,
right?
But probably, I might never know what the impact was, and that makes me really sad to think back to that. But there's times that I'm sure I did something that, best of intentions, it was not meant to be,
right?
That caused pain or difficulties, but I'm sure it did.
Well, and we're all in that situation, whether it's race or anything, I mean, many people have the best intention, but we can only really be aware of the context that we've been surrounded by. So, I think that's part of the growth and the learning, is having those conversations and becoming more aware of different environments and different cultures, that it's not just our culture that we grew up in this safe environment, in South Dakota, that's so comfortable, that's not how it is everywhere. And that's not how it is here every day either,
Yeah. So, I mean, you kind of mentioned too that you've been silent about this kind of stuff until somewhat recently, and you've opened up to share with others, and now being more open on Facebook. So what are your thoughts about what's going on in the country right now, in our region, our state, our city?
Yeah. Feels defeating. Feels really, really defeating. There's many sides to the situation right now and what's going on, but like I said, being from this community, we're so protected, and our perspectives are very limited to what we've experienced ourselves and what, we've seen around us. So we really can't possibly put ourselves in another person's shoes. But what we can do is be empathetic. We can listen. If we care, we can take action and try to make change to make things better. After the George Floyd situation and video came out, my boss actually told me about the video, and my whole team, well, my boss is in Minneapolis, so a lot of my team is in the Minnesota area. And so he was like, oh, we're going to have to shut down location today. This happened. And he's like, you don't want to see the video, Cam. I said, okay. I'm like, I don't think I do want to see the video. And I tried to avoid seeing the video. And inevitably, you see the video. In today's world, you can try to avoid, but you see the video.
Yeah.
And I just broke down. I mean, I went to a place that I had never been mentally before. And there was so much going on in my mind, but at the same time, externally, I was so quiet and I was so silent. And even my husband said, like, what is going on with you? Like, you seem like you're not even here. And I said, I'm not. And I don't even know where I am, but I know that I'm not here. And I don't know why, but I need a moment. I need time to just let this sit and digest, And so I confessed, like, my girlfriends know this, but, and I had shared with you, but, I just felt like I had to share with my girlfriends, like, I'm not okay. I'm not okay. And like, this is my cry to you. I'm a little worried about where I am mentally. I'm not okay. I'm really struggling with this and I don't know why. I don't know what the answer is. You don't have to say anything. I'm just not okay. And I need to finally say that to you and share that I'm not okay. And I said, I've always avoided having these conversations. I never wanted them to be uncomfortable with a race conversation. And, they fired back with, So you're sitting being uncomfortable so that we're not uncomfortable, you know, and like they were like, why would you do that? You know, which was nice, you know, that it was welcoming for me to share and to just say like, I'm frustrated and I don't know why, and I'm just not okay, you know, and to have somebody to go to. Because I sat in that for a long time by myself, you know, in the Black community, you know, but in the community I grew up in, some of my longest and, you know, best friends are white individuals, you know, and so they could understand. And it's not that I needed them to understand, but I needed them to know that I needed them. Like I needed them at that point in time, you know, and that without having the, you know, a Black community surrounding me to say, how are you doing? Like, this is hard on everybody mentally right now, you know, that it was just life as usual in the white community. Yeah, that's carry on as normal.
I would say that was probably really, I don't want to say scary. I think that undersells it, but like, you know, intimidating maybe to go and open up to people about something, because it sounds like you have a really great community of support around you. But if that's something that you've never talked about really and never shared, like I mean, to me, that sounds a really brave thing to step up to the plate and say, you know what, I need to just lay it out there. And if it's received well, awesome. If not, at least I got to, you know, come clean and speak my truth.
Right. Yeah. And I even just said, I feel so vulnerable, you know, like I feel really vulnerable, and you might hate me as a friend for saying this, and you might be threatened and selfish, Cameryn, like we have to reach out to you and check on you, you know, like that's really kind of how I felt. And that's not how it was received, thank goodness. Like, you know, but it could have been. It very well could have been. And they could have said, you know what, you're going to have to deal with this on your own, you know. But without doing that and without confessing, like, I'm just not okay. Like, I just need you to just check in on me, because I'm not going to tell you that I'm not okay again. Like, I'm telling you right now, can you please be there? Because I don't know if I can be there for myself right now, you know, is really kind of how it was. And I even had a friend reach out to me and call me, and she broke down crying and said, Cam, I've always thought of you as this super strong, confident, positive person. I've never thought I got to worry about Cam and call her. And that hit me, because I was like, what? Like, I'm stressed out all the time. You know, like, is that your impression? Who's that person? You know, like that was the impression that people had, but that's not how I was feeling. So until I said it and shared it with my friends in that vulnerable state, like I had to have the courage to accept the negativity that could come my way. But I just put it out there and ultimately decided, like, I just need to share my thoughts, you know. But I had also, if they had brought up the discussion previously, I had avoided it. So I was a hypocrite, and I called myself out to my friends and I said, I've always avoided these conversations with you, and I've been silent on them, and I've just avoided discussing them with you entirely. So I'm a hypocrite for being mad at you for not reaching out to me. But I'm mad at you, and I know that I've avoided it before, and I'm not going to avoid it again. And the door is open now, you know?
Well, that's awesome. I mean, that's a hard thing to do, because like I said, you I mean, first off, you owned it. You know, you said, you know, I know I haven't talked to you about it. So I think what you said the other day was, shame on you for not asking, but shame on me for not
saying anything. Dang it. Shame on all of us. Yeah.
Shame. And something you said a little while back that is a word that I don't want to fly under the radar, is that you said you feel kind of defeated almost in some ways. And I know that we've discussed this too, but you're not one who's used to being defeated. I don't know that happening a whole lot in my experience with you. You push, you know, talking at the world of athletics alone, like you approached every race like you were going to win it, and most of the time you did. You know, you came at it with that tenacity, and you, if you ever something didn't go your way, I remember the face afterwards, and the it was angst. Yeah. It was
Yeah.
Like it was this real serious, intense face, but I knew that whatever that next race was, I felt bad
Watch out.
in your heat, you know. Like, that's what I was
Good
thinking.
thing we had our own lanes, right? Yeah. I liked that I had my own lane. Yeah.
But I mean, you said that word, and that really just stood out to me, because I said I know your background, and for you to say defeated,
Yeah.
that's a real heavy word. I feel like for you.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. It did feel really defeating. Because it feels like there's been so much work that's happened, but so little progress, and I don't know, sometimes I would fall silent because of the prior situations that I had, and, I didn't feel like I could talk to anybody about what was going on. But when I saw the George Floyd video, I felt this overwhelming feeling of all the previous situations that I've gone through with race. And I lived through, and that my siblings had gone through, and my, parents and grandparents had gone through. Like many people don't know this, but my brother was pulled over when he was younger, driving in Sioux Falls, and he was surrounded by police guns and pinned down to the ground, and he had a water gun. But not before it was blasted all over the news that this black kid was driving around shooting people out of his car. Somebody else had the gun in his car, and he was pulled out of the car and surrounded by police officers and pinned down, taken to jail before they realized that it was a water gun, So those situations go through my mind and go, my gosh, this was how many years ago? And the narrative hasn't changed. It's the same thing that's happening. So it feels so defeating. What are we doing to change this if the same things are continuing to happen? And most of it's not caught on video. It's not. His situation wasn't caught on video. It was just the news story that was broadcast that was caught on video. Mm-hmm. And nothing said afterward of what actually happened and what it was. The raw story that wasn't realistic was what was left there for history. And then not even my closest friends know this, and I had to share it with my husband before coming on today. But another situation of, I got kicked out of my classroom in 6th grade because the teacher said racism doesn't exist anymore, as we started going through, history of slavery and this. And I was like, I feel like it does. Like, black girl over here, yes, I think it does still exist. People don't want it to, and it's not as open, but I think it does exist. And because I disagreed, kicked me out of the room. So it's like, how can we not talk about it? How can't we just have the conversation, And then even after that, where an upperclassman thought it was funny to joke with his friends as I walked by in the hallway saying, I'm going to just rape her when she walks home. And it was this feeling of, you can control me and I can't say anything, and they're not going to believe me. They're going to believe you. And my mom went to the school. They wouldn't do anything. And I was terrified. And what could I do? And so those kind of situations are what came to me, that I just felt like defeated. Like, this can't continue to happen. Those little microaggressions. There were other words used that I wouldn't use online here, but it was about me being a black girl, was the comments that were made, And so those kind of microaggressions and intentional aggressions are what has to stop, And if we ignore them and we go silent and we don't say anything, and let's just look at the positive, we don't need to focus on the negative, it defeats the purpose of addressing the issue that's at hand.
Cam, I just want to say, before we keep going, thank you for being so vulnerable. Like, this is breaking my heart. Because we were not in the same town, but, kind of small town. We're pretty much the same, It's like,
we were only 15 minutes away. Yeah.
Pretty much. We went to the fair every year, but I just think about how hard that must have been, and how long you've sat silent on this. And you said you just started opening up to people, and here I call you out and be like, hey, come on. this Facebook live cast and be really open and vulnerable, and you did it. And I just want to say thank you, because this is, oh man, I've become an emotional mess since I had kids, but I'm like tearing up here now too.
Oh no.
It's good. It's good. It's good.
It is fine. I mean, I'm in mentoring circles at US Bank too, women's mentoring circles, African-American mentoring circles, and I join other circles that, don't directly affect me, just to learn more about, what other people go through and struggles. And after George Floyd, there were a ton of discussions like, let's talk, let's come together, and everybody talked. And I said, I'm just gonna cry. I just cried. I was like, it's not okay. Somebody I know, their nephew had been shot down by police unarmed, and she shared this story, and I was like, I just want to cry with you and hug you, because I'm sure that's so hard for you to share, and there's so many people that have those stories, and it's really hard to embrace those and share them and relive them again when we share them. Yeah. But it's hard because people don't really understand unless it's like they understand that emotional connection with somebody, but the thing is why do you have to know somebody to know that they're a good person? Like when we see somebody, why do we have to judge them by what they look like? Why do we have to know them personally at first, and that's what we need to get past.
Yeah, that's so true. And, I know we're getting towards the end of our time here. We've got, 10 minutes left or so. So, I mean, I want to know too, like with all the things that we've talked about, obviously that's a lot of heavy stuff to carry. But what are some things that are maybe like giving you some hope for the future as you look ahead? And what I know you have some resources that you've talked about with me that we can share out here too. But I'd love to know what gives you hope, what resources you recommend people look into from your own experience, and then yeah.
Oh goodness. I don't know. I mean, these conversations are huge. I think they're really huge because, like I said, the Black community has known this and been discussing these things for a while, but I think until we start opening up and other people start having these conversations too. So, groups like Lost and Found and you having webinars like this and opening up the table for conversation, and the opportunities and resources that you provide to individuals to, help to build that resiliency are really what give me that hope, because until people start talking about it and sharing what works for them, people are going to think that they're sitting in it on their own. We all go through traumatic times. We all go through stress and anxiety, and frustration and, pure happiness that can also cause anxiety. But understanding the coping mechanisms that will work for you is huge, so I love this organization. I can't believe I didn't know about it earlier. I love, well, you got to start somewhere, right? Yeah. But, I think it's people like you, like we said, like the white male in America that's not afraid to have those conversations and have those uncomfortable conversations and bring those, to the forefront and to the table. That I think that's really, really important. And I think about my grandparents and my daughters themselves, not a lot of people know that why my family moved to South Dakota. Like my dad's family was from Mississippi, but they lived here a lot of their life. Well, they came here because KKK burned their house down. So all the way to South Dakota, they went, and they ran, but they also walked with Martin Luther King Jr. And now I can vote today because of that, so even though there has been, or there can be little progress, it gives me hope, keeps me optimistic that things are going to change and people are open to that change, but we can't just be silent about it either, and it's with my girls. I mean, so many times when you see, these horrendous videos or people being gunned down unarmed and, dying, the very first thing you hear is how horrible of a family that they grew up in, or, horrible things that they were involved in, or the bad neighborhood that they came from. And those neighborhoods are all breeding, like it's all of this negativity that you see. But my girls are really flipping that script because they're coming from the exact same family, the exact same neighborhood, the same household and benefits. But outside of our house, I'm very well aware that they don't have the same privilege as each other, you know, with a little blonde, light-skinned, hazel-eyed girl, and then a dark-skinned, curly-haired, you know, brown-eyed girl. You know, our society does not see them the same, and they're not the same. Like, it's fine to see them differently, you know, but we're really flipping the script with that. It's not going to be the same, you know, story at the beginning. So just like, I mean, we're very open with our girls when they ask questions and they're curious. And we're very cautious about sharing our opinion of things with them because we want them to form their own opinion, but we want them to be well prepared. You know, we want them, when and if somebody ever calls them the N-word, please don't fire back with the F-bomb. You know, like let's learn how to handle it. How are you going to respond? You know, and give them that weapon of, you know, kindness and how to educate and share back, you know. And what's weird is they are going to have to stand up for each other too, you know, going into those situations. So, you know, I really hope that they'll grow and learn opportunities, you know, to understand inequalities and unfair treatment and to identify that and call it out, you know, for people. So, I mean, that's really what keeps me optimistic.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then, I mean, this is all stuff that ties back to people, I think, at any point in their life. Oh, we have a comment. Hey, let me toss this up. Hey, we got a comment. So we got a comment from Justine here. Thank you for no longer staying in your lane, and forget about me. But we're gonna support these conversations. So I'm super happy that you're sharing your story. You know, our initial conversation started. We were talking about what it was like to be a resilient college athlete, because that's a group that, you know, sometimes gets forgotten, but it delved into something much deeper. And I think it's, I mean, I'm glad we had our conversation of the day so we could see where this is going, because I think these are the things that we need to hear. These are the conversations we need to be having, because, you know, with the things that I'm hearing from you, it's about don't be silent, share your story, be open, advocate for change in your community, build a community. You know, like you've got a lot of stuff that you've got going. I know you had a couple things you wanted me to toss up here on the screen. Up first.
Yes. So a couple of resources. One thing that has really helped me, and I can't even remember how I came across this, but somebody had suggested to me to join the Shine text notifications. And this is something I live by now. So if you go to joinshinetext.com, they'll send you text messages with positive words of encouragement. The Shine organization is a group that helps to provide resiliency and to find ways to manage stress and anxiety and get through difficult times. And that you can set when you want the notification to come and everything. So it'll ask for your phone number. And so I had mine set for the morning. So even when you're rolling out of bed and going, oh, I just can't do today, you know, or really bad day, I'm not really looking forward to it, you get that Shine text, and all of a sudden it's that positive encouragement that really helps you start the day. So yes, the Shine text is one suggestion that I have, and it is Black, Indigenous, and People of Color Month. So yeah, at the address there are some really good resources. This is also a Shine resource, but on their website you can go and look up. You can do meditations. They have free daily meditations through their app or their website, and then a lot of really good resources. So wanted to share that.
Yeah, and I did put both of those in the chat. So if y'all are watching this and you're watching this later and you're wondering what these links are, and you miss them and you don't want to type them, you can just click. It's in the chat. In the comments. So yeah. Cam, do you have any last thoughts for us as we get ready to leave and you get ready to try out that super sweet camper?
Yeah. Woo! camping for the first time in our camper. Yeah, no, for me, I would say to be vulnerable. That's something that obviously during this call I've had to do, but that's something that I've learned. You really, being vulnerable helps you find the courage to do more, and it really helps you to grow. And ultimately, that resiliency, as I noted before, is finding balance and peace in your life. So on some days, balance does not feel right. My advice is to just take time to absorb it and just let it sink in. And then remember to find the peace and find what works for you, to help to delete that negativity.
Awesome. Well, like I said, I thank you, Cam, so much for being here with us today. And like I said, you're just started this journey of vulnerability, and here I am throwing you under the proverbial bus, but like, hey, do it to a bunch of people that are watching you on Facebook. So I appreciate that. I appreciate you sharing. And if any of you who are watching want to connect more with Cam, feel free to reach out to us here at Lost and Found. These are our social media handles, and also we put a .org at the end of that, and that'll get you to our website. Not the app part, that won't help. Take that out. But resilienttoday.org, and we can get you connected there. We want to make sure we're getting you connected with this, because like I said, Cam has a lot of great experiences. And I mean, for those of you folks who are maybe in the realm of athletics or music, or just want to know what it's like to be a student who isn't super involved and successful, Cam's probably a great resource. So don't hesitate to reach out. And yes, Kelly, thank you, Cam. Yes, very much thanks. Thank you again. We'll be back next Thursday. We've got a conversation coming up with Sarah Jameson of Tara Shepherd Boutique and Apothecary here in Sioux Falls, and she's going to be talking about some cool concepts here, especially as we follow up about what's been happening with COVID and what that's done for our community as a whole. So thank you all for watching this with us, whether it's now or later, and we'll be here every Thursday. Time TBD, but every Thursday. So thanks again, Cam.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Awesome. Well, everyone, you have a great day, and we'll see you soon.